Next up, I first met him as a barista at Roscoe's. He's currently working at Cordial Cork next door, but more importantly, he is a local artist. I think he has a show at Earlham right now, right? Yeah, it's currently up at Earlham. So please welcome Bennett Ritchie.
Hey, how's it going? I can't see any of you. Oh, no, I can. It's fine. This is a beautiful love story. All right. So it was late December of 2015, and I was determined to fall in love. I was 21 at the time, so I was filled with passion and a burning fire that couldn't be quenched, except for that kind of thing. I figured it made sense, I didn't know any better. I was young. It was back in my youth. And so naturally, I was on this very convenient app called Tinder, Yeah, it was great. It was really working out. So I was talking to this woman for a while. We had both swiped right on each other. It was no big deal. And the conversation was smooth, and it was lovely, and it was flowing, and it was beautiful. So naturally, we decided that it was time to meet up in person, face to face, which is a terrifying prospect for all of you out there in the game. And so I looked over at my friends, Eric and Aaron, who were sitting next to me in Roscoe's at the time, and I said, all right, guys, I think this is it. I think I'm gonna meet with this woman today. We're gonna do it now. And they said, okay, hold on, Bennett, let's back up a little bit. This is a bad idea. You may die. Now, they knew something. They knew something that you all don't know. Maybe some of you know, I don't know. They knew that the mystery woman lived in Oxford, Ohio, which is about 27 miles away. It's a 40-minute car drive. And they also knew that I don't drive a car. So my main form of transportation is my vintage steel frame bicycle, which I love dearly. And so I stood up and I declared both my passion for my bicycle and for this woman who I had yet to meet. And I stormed out. Well, I came back and I bought some coffee and a thermos from Roscoe's, where I was at the time. And I biked home real fast-like, and I packed my supplies that I would need for this big journey ahead. I packed my coffee. I packed my tasty snacks. I packed my double socks. I packed my bike pump, my cell phone charger, and I took off. I plotted my course, figured out where I was going to go, and I went into the night for love, for passion. You all understand. And it was cold. If you remember, this was late December of 2015. It wasn't a snowy winter, but it was bitter and it was cruel. But that didn't really matter because, I was in love. And who's that going to stop? Not me. Definitely not. But I got to about Boston, Indiana, and I'm not sure how many of you have been there or not. But my toes were starting to fall off at this point because it was pretty cold, And even 21-year-old Bennett, bless him, was starting to feel the repercussions of just going out and doing some dumbass thing like biking in the cold. And so I figured, okay, I'm just gonna hop off my bike here in Boston and just look for some signs of life. Walk around, maybe find a convenience store or a gas station, which I figured every town has. But not in Boston, I don't know. I'm just gonna, spoiler alert, Boston doesn't have much. I'm sure it's beautiful, I don't know. But I discovered in that moment, to my amazement, that walking around just a little bit to find some warmth to solve the problem of, frostbite. I didn't want to have frostbite on my date. That would be bad news, bad form. But I found that walking around restored blood to my feet, and that solved the issue. So I could just bike on, and whenever my feet felt like they were going to fall off, I could just hop off and do some jumping jacks or do an Irish jig or do whatever, hop on and bike on. I was on my way, and that was great. Things were really working out. There was no problem. So I biked on, and after a couple of circuits of hopping off and hopping back on every 10 minutes or so, my bike started to slow down a little bit, and I was wondering why. Now, this wasn't a great bike. I loved the bike. I loved the bike so much, but it was kind of falling apart in different ways. This was pre-bike mechanic Ben. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. But I was on this bike, and I looked back, and my rear tire was slowly deflating on me, which is always kind of game over. It's always bad news. But not for me. I had my bike pump on me. But it wasn't a small, compact bike pump. It was a full-size floor bike pump. That's all I had at the time. It was sticking out of my backpack about yay high, and I figured, what a silly thing to see, someone biking down the road with a bike pump. But hey, it was for love, and I was very happy to have that bike pump in that moment. And so I hopped off and investigated, and it was a very slow drain in a valve. So I figured that's good news, you know, if I can pump it up and bike on, and every time if my bike slows down, I can hop off and pump it up again and keep going. And in that moment, I laughed because I realized that the gods were the ones who gave me that flat tire because I had not yet approached the problem that I was about to face, which was freezing fingers. I didn't prepare very well for this trip. And so I already had to get off my bike to fix the problem of frostbitten toes, which I was trying to avoid. And so it only worked out that much better in my favor that I had also to pump up my bike. So it was really working out. So every 10 minutes or so, I'd hop off my bike, do some calisthenics or whatever, do some jumping jacks, and then I also got like a full upper body workout too. So by the time I would arrive, I'd be, you know, like super muscular. And so I really had no complaints at this point. You know, sometimes these things really do just work out. And so I kept biking, you know. I kept biking as one does and hopping off and jumping around, pump up and down a little bit, hop back on, and keep going, hoping for the best. And then something started to happen that I did not see coming at all. So this was winter. And in winter, the sun starts setting a little bit earlier than it ought to. And even though this had happened just the day before, no one warned me for that. There was no way that I could have planned that into my preparations, into my journey. And so I figured, okay, whatever, you know, this is fine. I have a little dinky rear blinker. Cars will see me, although cars don't travel on the road. I was on 227 at the time as well, which I don't know. No one was really out and about. There are no street lights. And it was getting dark, and I was a little concerned at this point, you know, but I kept on going because, again, this was for love. We've all been there. And you got to keep on going. So I kept on biking, and you hop off, you do your thing, you hop on, and I was drinking my coffee, and it was about gone at this point, and all my tasty snacks were also depleted, so my rations were out the window. And it was pitch black. And I was concerned, because I didn't really know if I was going in the right direction even. So I pulled out my smartphone, which I had had for about a year at that point. I'm a late bloomer. And I was just going to get my bearings and figure out where I was at, maybe find some sanity along the way. No problem, you know, see if she had texted me or whatever. But fun fact, electronics freeze. Yeah, and I had no idea. Again, how could I have known? I didn't look it up. I don't know. And so that's a bummer, you know. So I'm out there in the middle of Ohio somewhere, which is not a terrible place to be, but you know, I did not necessarily plan on dying in a ditch, you know, across the Ohio line. At least let it be in Indiana, my home state. Pretty lame way to go. Nothing against Ohio. It's a beautiful place. But anyway, but I didn't want to die, you know, this was for love, and I didn't want to go that way. I wanted to at least, you know, die on the way back after this had all happened. And so I kept on going, and you know, I was starting to get some of those weird nervous sweats, and it was really cold out, and I was kind of tired from all the full body workouts I'd been doing for the past couple hours. And this trip really should only take about 2 hours on a bike. Maybe 1 hour if you're Ben Brazel, because he's really fast, but I'm not Ben Brazel. And it was taking considerably longer than that. And so I was a little concerned. I was starting to freak out a little bit because I was hungry and I was tired, and the sun was away, the stars were coming out, a little bit behind the overcast clouds, a little bit. The moon was in the horizon, and that was lovely. But I started wondering, okay, well, I'm just going to keep going in this direction. And I'm going to pray to the bike gods up above that it's all going to work out. And so I kept on going, and in the horizon, there was a glow, a beautiful glow. And I turned behind me, and there was a similar glow. And I figured, well, that must be Richmond behind me, and that must be Oxford in front of me. So I'm just going to keep biking toward that glow up ahead. This music is beautiful, thank you. And as I biked on the horizon, some smaller twinkly lights started appearing, and I figured, well, that must be some houses or something in Oxford. And I was filled with a renewed sense of joy and reckless abandon. I was 21. I had a lot of that. And so I kept biking, and around a dark corner, the bright lights of a Best Western greeted me and warmed my whole body and my path in front of me. And I was so happy. I had made it to Oxford, or the Oxford city limits, or whatever. I was super close. And so I tethered up my bike outside And I went inside. I was cold and I was tired, and I said to the clerk, in a voice that only a husk of a man can say, I said, mind if I use your outlet? I gotta charge my phone in the corner. And of course, she said, absolutely, because she could see my eyes, that it was for love, just around the corner. And so as I was waiting for my phone to charge and text this woman that I was in fact alive because she had presumed me dead, I imagined, in a ditch somewhere, cold and frozen, just like the goat. As I was standing there, waiting for this to happen, I turned my gaze to the window and there she was, outside in the cold still of the winter night, leaning against the tree, her rear wheel slowly deflating, all 64 of her spokes gently glistening in the streetlight. And she winked at me, that little constant red wink of hers, as if to say, Bennett, this thing that you've been looking for this whole time, it has been right beneath you for the past 4.5 hours. And I knew in that moment I was already in love. Thank you. That's it.